What is up, gamers? Simon here. Welcome to HannaTalk. Hope you're all doing fantastic, especially on a beautiful sunny day here in Melbourne, Australia, or wherever you are in the world, no matter what weather it is. But today I'm here with a very special guest. Now, she is an actress who is best known to fans from games such as League of Legends as Karma, World of Warcraft as Hagara, Final Fantasy as Gwen, Skullgirls as Painwheel, and also being part of the Detective Pikachu video game. But she's also starred in anime such as Magi, the Kingdom of Magic, Sword Art Online, Ascendance of a Bookworm, and so much more. Please welcome Danielle McRae.
Hi, good to meet you.
Good to meet you too, Danielle. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Been trying to keep cool in the summer heat, but doing pretty good.
Absolutely. It can definitely feel like that. And obviously, during this time, because of what's happening with the pandemic and with the virus at the moment, how have you been keeping things up during this time, especially on the acting side of things?
So what I did, I think it was about a few months ago or so now at this point, since everything went remote just because of the COVID thing, I literally I had a little studio that I recorded everything from for about a good 7, almost 8 years. And since everything was going remote, I had to literally or buy a whole new microphone and a preamp and pretty much make a whole studio from scratch in my closet. So I have a whole new studio that I had to kind of remodel and recreate and put together. And it's been going pretty well. Going very, very well.
Fantastic. And that definitely seems to be the thing that a lot of actors nowadays have gone to now, which is remote voice acting. Even before this pandemic even struck, that seems to have kind of been the trend that a lot of actors have done nowadays, is particularly voice acting within the animation industry.
Oh yeah, because I recorded from home before all this happened, but it made me realize that the setup I had before and just the space that I had before and I recorded, it wasn't as good as it could have been. And so ever since this virus happened, I think the good thing that's happened through this was a lot of the engineers that I've been talking to, a lot of the audio engineers would tell me like, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. And I had a studio that actually helped me put this studio together, and now it's pretty much paid off, and I'm working on a lot of different shows and games because of the studio that this particular studio helped put together for me. So I really thank that studio a lot for doing that for me.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. And now let's get started with talking about the origins of your career. How did you get started in acting?
Um, so it's a very different kind of story because I know a lot of people they fall into it through like they have a theater bug. I kind of had that too, the theater bug, or they'll get everyone's journey is different. I know some people they'll get discovered into voice acting, let's say from a play, or let's say from a friend, uh, uh, giving them a good word, and then a producer or casting director wants to bring them in for an audition for something. But for me, I've always wanted to kind of do this since I was a kid. I just did not know at that time, about 7 or 8 years old, that this was actually a job, and this is what a lot of people were, doing back in those days when I was younger. So I wanted to pretty much dabble into voiceover from the cartoons and later on video games. I think video games really got me into it. I played when I was younger Metal Gear Solid for the PS1, and that was the very first game that had voiceover that I've noticed that it was like full on voiceover. And hearing Jennifer Hale and David Hayter and that kind of game, and it made me really want to pursue this. So um, here in LA, there used to be a lot of voiceover classes. It was at a studio called Bang Zoom, and it would do a lot of workshops, voiceover workshops for beginners, intermediate, and then a master class. Um, so I literally took a few classes, and from there I kind of got my start from the teacher who was also a director for anime and video games, and he noticed that a few classes in that I was really determined and I really wanted to pursue this as a career. And so from there, after a couple classes, he pretty much put my name down on an audition pool. And from there, I just started auditioning for things, and then it just kind of snowballed, and then more studios kind of found out about me through word of mouth from other colleagues. And then work just started coming, and it's been crazy. It's been a really crazy almost 10 years of doing this.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's really amazing that your experience, that your origins in starting your career was very different from a lot of the other actors who, as you mentioned about before, have come from like theater backgrounds or from playing across in plays. But you obviously you mentioned about before with having a little bit of that theater experience, but yours you wanted to go straight into voice acting right from the get-go, whereas a lot of
Yeah.
actors have that theater background experience for that matter, which is very,
Mm,
very, very extraordinary.
yeah.
And also in the fact as well that there are some voice actors out there that have started in the theater side of things and still continue to pursue that side of themselves, despite the fact they're now part of the voiceover industry. A couple of the people that come to mind for me has been people like Joshua Seth, who of course many people know from Digimon, Brian Beacock, who we'll know from Bleach, and also I think was part of Bang Zoom as well. I think part of the same production
Yes.
company as well. So
Hmm.
it's quite amazing in that fact that like your experience from that came it came from like obviously playing video games as such a young kid to going like, you know what, I want to do voiceover. That's it right there.
Yeah. So
That's
I did take, oh yeah, it was a journey. So I did take some theater in college. I didn't mention that earlier, but I did take a couple of theater classes in college. A friend of mine knew that I really wanted to do this voiceover as a career, and he kind of told me that if you really want to get into this, you need to learn how to act because you can have the best character voice in the world or a number of character voices in the world, but if you don't have any acting talent, then you really won't be able to pull them off convincingly. So I took some theater classes, and then came the workshops. But yeah.
That's fantastic, and that actually brings me back to an interview that I had with Joshua Seth, where we were talking about, like, obviously with a lot of the roles that he's played in the past, is that he has one of the most identifiable voices in the voiceover industry because he just uses his natural voice across a lot of the roles that he's done, which is because he said, I think I'm probably paraphrasing him when I say this, but I think he said, "I just wanted to try and make it a point to use my voice as much as possible." In
Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I think I remembered him saying about that. I mean, there have been other actors that you can easily identify just from their voice alone. I mean, obviously people like Brian Beacock from a variety of the roles that he's done. Steve Bloom has another really identifiable voice. But
Hmm.
some of them that you wouldn't that you would listen to and you wouldn't pick up straight away who they were. You go like, oh wow, I didn't know XYZ play this, or I didn't know XYZ play that. So, but
Yeah, it's insane. It's. I used to think of voiceover, and I kind of still think of that as like a Where's Waldo thing, where it's kind of like you listen to a role in a show, one of your favorite shows and one of your favorite games, and then you have no idea. Like you wonder, like, I wonder who's voicing this character, or this sounds familiar. I wonder who's voicing them, and then you see the credits, and it's like, okay, it's that person. I didn't know they could do that. It's almost like gosh, it's like I'm trying to find a way to express that, but or explain myself, but like it almost seems like uh, let's say it's someone like Tara Strong, and let's say you hear her in like a show or a game, and then you think, oh gosh, she sounds really familiar, like Tara Strong. Like, no, I can't be Tara Strong, and then it's like there she is. Like it's a lot of talent. It's to the point where a lot of voiceover talent, you don't have to have multiple voices um, to be in this field. And I learned that like kind of the hard way because when I first started, I thought you had to have a million voices, but there's a lot of talent like Steve Bloom and everybody out there, uh, the guy who plays Nathan Drake. You can have that one voice, and you sound amazing, and it just works perfectly.
absolutely, I definitely agree on that. And there was actually a quote that I remember from Tiffany Grant last time I had her on Hannah Talk talking about some of her latest projects, where I mentioned about one role that she had done quite recently, and I saw clips of it, and because I was so used to hearing her voice as Asuka and her natural voice in a lot of her other roles, that I heard this one voice that she had done, and I went like, that's Tiffany Grant? Like it just took me by surprise, and she actually said to me, "That's actually the biggest compliment you can give to a voice actor."
Oh yeah,
which absolutely just blew my mind. It was like, wow, I but that's just fantastic, and that's definitely true. Like, especially in that fact, as we've mentioned about before, with people like Steve Bloom and Nathan Fillion, who of course played Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series, they have the most recognizable voices in the industry, and yet they can just pull off so much acting wise just by using their regular voice. They don't have to put on like 1,000 voices in the one role to prove that. They can just use that one voice and it gets the job done.
Exactly.
It's amazing. That's fantastic. And with and with all the projects that you've done in the past and currently do now, do you walk into a series or project expecting to play like a certain role, or is it just like a jack in the box, not knowing what's going to pop out?
So as of now, I love to get surprised. I love to kind of find out who I'm playing, like uh, as I'm, let's say, going into my booth here, or uh, let's say audition for a part for multiple characters, and then I totally forget about audition, because what I do with auditions is I audition for something, and then I kind of just send it off. I send it off into like my email, and then I just kind of not think about it. And I just love to be surprised with what I get to play as, who I get to play with character wise. But when I was first starting out, I always wanted to be uh, either a character in a fighting game, or just any character like a protagonist in an anime. But now I've been very grateful to just take uh, like parts for characters that are completely surprising, and characters that I never thought I'd ever be able to portray. So it very much is a wild card, and I really appreciate that.
Fantastic. And across your entire career, and also what you currently do now, have you ever turned down like a role or an audition for any particular reason?
Um, I had to turn down a couple of auditions. Those were a game, and it was mostly because it would be, let's say, someone who referred me for this project to audition for it, and I'd look at the characters, and it wouldn't be necessarily the character like that I wouldn't like. It would be uh, we need like a really high pitched kind of tone of voice, and my voice really can't do that. So I always feel bad whenever I have to kind of give up an audition there. But what I will do is, if I can't do it, I'll refer somebody else who I know that can do it. I'll just say, I can't do this, but maybe somebody in my friend list can do this and might be really good for this part. So it hasn't happened lately, but a couple of years ago, I had to turn down a lot of auditions that had uh, the cutesy, high-pitched character voices.
Right, fantastic. And also because a lot of voice actors, well, typically also tend to turn down like auditions, especially if the content in there is either like on one end of the extreme or just way too hardcore for them. Just like, nope, I'm not doing that. It's against my values. I'm not doing that.
Uh-huh.
So so I've heard of reasons for stuff like that, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But no, that's just also amazing that in that fact, whenever you're given like roles that you know are outside of your range, that you say, no, no, I can't pull that sort of role off. But I know someone who can. I can refer you to that person, which I think is fantastic, and I think that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And
I've had voiceover actors do that for me too, and I see it as a pay it forward system. So I see it as I'm returning the favor, and I always love to refer the people that I feel would be really good for a part or an audition, and I always try my best to do that for my peers and everybody. Um, yeah, it's really
abs-
cool.
absolutely, and I feel like that's what every industry I think needs to be at that point, which I think is just fantastic. So that's really wonderful. And going across into now talking a little bit more with regards to with regards to anime, and of course with any project that you've worked on. Now, as many fans will know, anime is typically based on manga, but you also have projects that have existed that have a very big franchise or a very big kind of history behind it. in the case of World of Warcraft, or in case of other famous game series, like Final Fantasy, for example, have you ever read the manga for any anime series you worked on, or were you familiar or heard of a project, whether it's been anime or games, before you started working on that series?
Um, well, I can actually answer that with two different. One was for a show and one is for a game. So for a show that I really loved and really appreciated before I became a part of it was Magi or Magi. I loved that show a lot, so I went and read some of the manga before I even had an audition for that show. And then when I booked the part for it, I was really stoked, and I'm like, I didn't think I'd get this part, and I didn't think I'd be a part of this show. And it was really amazing. I still kind of read the mangas, and I took a break from it lately. But since we're kind of in quarantine, I might as well just pick it up and continue to read it because it's a really good story. And for video games, Final Fantasy has a really special place in my heart. My first Final Fantasy game that I played was 7. So when I got the audition for 7, well, it wasn't really an audition. I literally got called in and asked by the director, "Are you free to come in this day at this time?" And I didn't know what I was recording for. It said it's for an upcoming Union AAA game, but we want you to come in for like this hour to this hour on this day. And I was like, okay, I'll come in. And I found out right on the spot as soon as I went to the studio that's for FF7 remake, and it kind of brought me back to nostalgia. I mean, kind of just growing up with FF7, giving all the characters different voices, and playing through that game 4 or 5 times, and being very familiar with like everything. But yeah, definitely those two.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And that's definitely what I kind of noticed across, because typically with a lot of voice actors in that fact, like that some of them I have actually heard of the manga that the anime is usually based on, but typically the answer that you get across is usually no, but they hear about pages and stories from fans that are given to them. And there was one answer that came to me from Joshua Seth, where he got one bit of advice from this one actor when he was preparing for roles, and the advice that he got from him, which was don't read ahead, as because he wanted to be surprised for whatever project he was going in, and to not have like any sort of expectation or preconceived ideas about how the story is going to turn out, because they'll change some things about from the manga right to the anime, or some things about doing like the previous games before. So
Oh yeah, yeah. They can always go a different direction. There's a show I'm working on, Ascendance of a Bookworm, and they have like a manga for that. And part of me wants to read it just to see where my character goes and where the story goes. The other part of me is just like, let's just be surprised and see what happens next. So I'm leaning more towards let's just see what happens. Maybe like after the show is completely done, I'll just go and read the manga and see what all might have been cut out from the anime, and just see how things went in the manga.
that's fantastic. That's wonderful. And you mentioned about before, like playing across from both video games to anime, but what medium have you been particularly drawn to, like personally, as an actress?
um, I love anime a lot. I grew up with that, and I also grew up with video games. But I think my heart will always gravitate a little more towards video games, just because I've um, especially when I was a kid, when I was younger, my parents didn't know what to get me for a toy or for any form of entertainment. So if they were to get me a doll or something, I would pretty much be like Sid from Toy Story and just make a whole new toy. Just take a doll apart and take a figurine apart and just kind of make a whole new toy. And then games kind of came in that in that kind of way. My dad kind of let me have a Super Nintendo when I was a kid and tried a few games, and then ever since then I've just been kind of hooked to video games even to this point. Um, so yeah, I would definitely say video games. It's kind of corny, but video games actually helped me grow a little bit as a person. So it's to a point where it's almost like ingrained into me that it's like, I don't know. I gravitate more towards the games.
Right, that's fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And now, of course, going into your most prominent roles here, what was like your very first voiceover role, and what was it like doing that role?
Ooh. So my very first video or voiceover role was for a so this is for a fan film. It was a really, really good fan film. It was for like a Metal Gear kind of series. It was called Metal Gear Solid Philanthropy. And I played a lot of dying characters, a lot of infected zombie characters, like in the background. And I think the reason why that one feels so special was because since it was a fan film, Hideo Kojima got word of this film, and he commented and he emailed the creators of this film and said, I love what you did here. Can you make a sequel? And so when I found about that, the creators, I was like, oh my gosh, we were all noticed. This is crazy. And for him to request a second movie from this fan film, that really meant a lot.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. That's really, really wonderful. And hopefully at some point that we'll get to see like a full-on live action Final Fantasy film or TV series, because
That would be pretty cool.
that would be so amazing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
going across into some of your best known roles. Now, your best known roles were in games such as the League of Legends as Karma, World of Warcraft as Hagara, the Final Fantasy series as Gwen, Skullgirls as Painwheel, as well as Detective Pikachu as well. And you spoke a little bit about Final Fantasy today, but what was it like playing across those types of projects?
It was crazy because my very first video game credit was League of Legends, and that actually came about shortly after I finished taking the voiceover workshops, and I think it was for like a couple months or so, I was auditioning for League of Legends characters, and when I got booked for the role of Karma, I had no idea what League of Legends even was, and I was playing it a bit with some friends, and when I got booked for it, I didn't even know how to react. I was like, wow, it's my very first video game. And then from there, it just went, and like I saw it grow. Like you start seeing it in like tournaments, and I used to watch a lot of tournaments on Twitch and stuff. Um, I never wanted to try to play competitive because I was horrible at that game. But it was great seeing that game grow. It was like a like a blossoming flower. It started off really small, and now it's just huge. And then World of Warcraft came about a month after I worked on League of Legends. Like I booked that right after, like a month later, and I was like, okay, this is really crazy. And that's a franchise that my sister has been really addicted to growing up, and I would watch her play World of Warcraft and all the expansions coming out. And to be a part of that meant a lot to me and a lot to my sister. And then about a month later, it was like Skullgirls. So it was almost like a back-to-back-to-back thing. It didn't feel real at first. And I thought, what if this is all a dream? What if this has never happened? And what if I'm just dreaming all this stuff up? And the internet's like, no, you did all this stuff. There's no way it's a dream. Everyone sees that you've done all this. And I think at that time when I was doing all those projects at the same time, it almost felt kind of outer body, because I know a lot of people when they do voiceover, sometimes it takes them a good couple of years before they get, their first role or their first big, role. But I think with everything happening so fast, the way it did, it just felt unreal.
Wow, that's just absolutely fantastic. That's really, really wonderful. And talking a little bit more with regards to Detective Pikachu and with World of Warcraft. Now, when many people think of those franchises, they think of not just of the games, but also on the live action movies as well. Did you ever watch
Yeah.
the live action film on Detective Pikachu or the Warcraft game? And what has been your opinion about video games being adapted for live action?
Ooh. So I have not watched the Warcraft movie yet. I want to. I do want to sometime soon. The Detective Pikachu movie, I loved it. I watched it twice, and I really loved it. Um, I actually like there's some games, that turn out to be amazing movies. But I don't really hate the idea of games becoming movies or having movie counterparts. Um, I think if anything, it makes people who aren't familiar with the franchise, if they're watching a movie, let's say it's Mortal Kombat or Detective Pikachu or Warcraft, that might make them interested in getting into the game. So I'm not opposed to uh, games turned into movies.
Right. I think that's a really great attitude to have on that because most of the time, especially for like really big fans of the games, whenever they see like films being adapted based on this material, they'll because of our history with video game films, they'll tend the hardcore fans will absolutely hate it so much. But at the same time, you look at it as I think that's a really great attitude to have and looking at it as like, people are going to start going out to play these games because of these films. Now that they're familiar with what they're about,
Yeah.
which I think is just
I think it's
fantastic.
Yeah, I think it just, if anything, if it does anything, it opens up more doors for people to want to try out these games that these movies were inspired by.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. I think I see it in the same way of the fact, like with the superhero movies that we've had since the beginning of time, essentially, from both Marvel and DC. It's going to get people invested into these films who've never read the comics, who've never heard of these superheroes before. Even though, well, even though people will obviously have heard of Superman and Batman at that point, but it will get them invested into finding out about the comics that they were inspired by and go like, oh wow, okay, all right, I've watched this Batman movie, I watched this Superman movie, I watched this Avengers movie, I'm gonna check out some comics. So,
Yeah.
which I think is just fantastic. I think that's really, really wonderful, and I kind of see it in the exact same way with the video game films I've watched. And actually talking about the superhero projects, it was actually thanks to those films on like the Marvel and DC as well as the game films that actually got me into playing the games that those films are based on, as well as getting into reading the
Nice.
comics on all these different characters. So, which is absolutely fantastic, and you absolutely hit the nail right on the head with that, which is wonderful. And talking a little bit more about with regards to live action video game films, with Detective Pikachu and recently Sonic the Hedgehog having broken the video game film curse, is there a particular video game project that you've worked on that you want to see adapted for live action, whether as a film or a TV series?
Um, I would love. So there's a game. It's an awesome visual novel game. It's called Monster Prom, and I would love to see like a movie for that. Every character is different from each other, and it's amazing to see how many characters are in this game and still get continually added into this game. So I think it'd be great to see like a live adaptation of that, either that or Skullgirls. That'd be great to see a movie for that as well.
Fantastic. I think that would be amazing if they were to do something like that. I would even love to see them do a Final Fantasy series. That would be amazing actually if they did something like that
Yeah.
because I know for a fact that ever since I think Detective Pikachu and Sonic the Hedgehog having started to break the curse that we've had with live action video game films and series, they've now started doubling down on doing live action properties on a lot of these really big game series. The best example actually is with The Last of Us, turning that into a live action TV series and them doing the same thing
Yeah.
for the Fallout series as well.
Oh yeah. They're making a series, I think, for
Yes,
Fallout, I believe.
yes, they are. So they're developing a live action TV series for the Last of Us games, as well as a TV series for the Fallout video games, which I was very surprised that they went straight to that. I felt like, wow, I did not expect that.
Yeah. It's a nice surprise.
It is a
It's a
very
very
nice
nice surprise.
surprise. It is a very nice surprise indeed. I think in terms of other game projects, I would love to see them do for live action. I think many fans have been saying this for a very long time. I would love to see them redo like a Super Mario live action film or TV series.
Oh, that would be nice.
I,
I'd love that too. I'd
I
love to see that.
I would love to see them do that. I would even love to see them do a Legend of Zelda series. That would be really amazing if they were to do something
Uh
like that.
huh. That would definitely be like an instant binge watching kind of show for like Zelda or Mario.
Absolutely, because I know for a fact that most of the game properties that we've seen from live action have come from these really popular like from these very popular gaming companies, but most of the time really from PlayStation themselves. but not really from Nintendo since the first Super Mario movie with Bob
Mhm.
Hoskins.
Yeah.
So, but who knows? I think because of what's happening right now with these video game properties, Nintendo is going to look at this because they're known for being very particularly protective of a lot of their properties. They go like, you know what? We're not doing the live action thing again until we're absolutely confident in doing it and we're getting the right people to do this. They're just going to look at that and go like, you know what? Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, because that would be
Mhm.
fantastic. And
That'd be amazing.
that would be amazing. And going a little bit more now, going into the anime side of things, where did voice acting for anime happen for you?
So it actually happened with the anime Sword Art Online. So I was and I'm still a huge fan of that show, and I remember when auditions went out for that show, or before it went out, I actually started asking people of a specific studio, like, hey, because I found out that they were working on it and going to dub it and localize it. And I was asking them, would it be possible if I requested for a possible audition for this show? And so they gave me an audition for a couple of characters for that show. And I was telling myself, even if I don't get booked for this, it's amazing to even read for this. And originally, I did book a character in that show that I didn't even audition for. And things really didn't work out with that session, unfortunately. But um, I did I did record for a few additional characters or incidental characters. So like I'm scattered around like here and there, like a kid eating a piece of bread or a girl who's like afraid of you die in the game, you die in real life. Like I'm kind of scattered throughout the series of the first season, but it's still like an honor to even say to have started in a show such as Sword Art Online for anime. That's kind of where the anime journey started with that show.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And some of the other most notable anime you've worked on, you mentioned about, of course, with Sword Art Online, but you've also mentioned about with Magi, the Kingdom of Magic as Orba, but you also mentioned about Ascendance of a Bookworm as Ralph. What was it like playing
Uh-huh.
across those? What was it like playing across those series?
Um, I think the one with Ralph with the Sons of a Bookworm, I literally just got called in by the studio that I'm working with for many years, and they know my real house, and I voice a lot of boy characters for them, and so they kind of called me in and said, "Hey, we want you to come in for this boy named Ralph for this upcoming show, Sons of a Bookworm," and um, before I went in to record, they recommended me watch the first two episodes so I can get a feel for the show. And the first two episodes, and they gave me like a link from Crunchyroll, and I think at the time it was like 5 episodes, the first 5 episodes. And I went from episodes 1 and 2, and I just had to binge watch the rest of the episodes because it was just so. It's almost like a slice of life, wholesome kind of isekai kind of show, and I loved every minute of it. And when I went in to record for that show, I was really honored, and I told them that I had to binge watch the first 5 episodes because it kind of hooked me in a way. And for Magi, I was already familiar with the first season, and when I came in for the second season for the character Olba or Orba, it was really fun to play like kind of like I guess he's kind of misunderstood. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but you could tell that he's kind of lost. He doesn't really know what's good and what's bad, who's good and who's bad. He just thinks what he's doing is the right thing to do, and then you find out, later on that it's like you see him struggle a little bit. And I think comparing his kind of journey, Orba's journey from Magi to Ralph's journey, they're completely different.
Right, that's absolutely fantastic. And of course, with mentioning about with Sword Art Online. Now, I think I may have come across this before, but I know they did several video games on the from the Sword Art Online series. That was, I think that was a video game series at first before they adapted it into an anime.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right in that?
I believe so. Because it
Right,
did seem like the show came out a little after the game. Some of the games did.
right. Did you ever get the chance to play the games?
I did not, but I've heard a lot of good things about the games.
Wow, fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And where do you hope to see yourself with regards to acting in the long run?
Um, I just hope to keep working. Um, this year, as weird as it's been, just on all fronts, I think when it like work wise, I've been the busiest I've ever been. I've been really busy working on games and shows and audiobooks, and I think my biggest goal is to just hope to keep working within the next like 5, 10 plus years because I will never get tired of voicing for characters.
That's absolutely fantastic. That's just wonderful. And as an actress, looking across your entire career, excuse me, what was the most challenging role for you to play?
Um, it might be like a mix between Hagara from World of Warcraft and Painwheel from Skullgirls because both of their voices are very kind of guttural. They're very strained. They both yell a lot. But I think I'd have to go for Painwheel from Skullgirls because she's all yelling. Uh, her voice is just 24/7. She's constantly yelling. But um, yeah, I think she was the hardest one, and then Hagara would have to be the second hardest.
Wow, that's fantastic. And looking across your entire career, what's like one character or series that you've ever wanted to play or ever wished that you played?
Mm, I'm a huge fan of the Mass Effect series. Um, I I really don't know who I would have wanted to play in like the past games, just because I felt like everybody did an amazing job. But if I had to pick one character, I'd have to go back to Mass Effect 2 for Jack. I did love her character a lot, and Courtney did an amazing job with that character. So I kind of want to leave it to her. I think Courtney is a great Jack. I don't really want to step over that, but I would just probably want to be any character in the Mass Effect series.
Absolutely fantastic. And to all the listeners out there who'll be hearing this interview once it's up, let me know in the comments. Do you want to see Danielle McRae in the next Mass Effect series? Let's make it happen because that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be so fantastic. And looking across your entire career, what would you say has been like the one role that resonates with you the most?
Um, there's been quite a bit of roles that resonate with me because the way I see it is each character has a piece of me in them. Um, I might have to say Karma from League of Legends. She was the very first character, like video game wise, that I booked, and she has a very special place in my heart. So I would definitely say Karma from League of Legends.
Fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. And what has been your view on where the voice acting industry stands within the entertainment industry?
Um, as far as let's see how it's kind of grown or how um, huh, I'm trying to find an answer for that question because I feel like with the voiceover industry, I know like a long time ago, a lot of people would just see it as, well, the voiceover industry is not a real kind of profession or job. And now we have so much media out there when it comes to whether it's anime or video games or something like a Ghibli kind of film. Uh, I feel like people are taking it a lot more seriously and people are seeing it more as a profession now than they did when I was growing up. Um, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think there's a bit more focus on voiceover now than there has been like years and
Absolutely.
years ago.
Absolutely. No, that definitely answers it. That's absolutely fantastic. I definitely kind of see it in that sort of vein myself in that fact because it has definitely grown so much from where it was like even 20 or 30 years ago for that matter. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely has grown so much and seen as like, this can be taken seriously. And I will definitely say, and I know I will continue to say this on every single interview and till the day I die, but every time I go to a comic convention, whenever people ask me, why do you go to comic conventions? I go to meet the voice actors. They're my rock stars right there. That's
That's
what I
so
say.
sweet.
That's what I
Yeah.
say.
And to meet the people behind the characters at these conventions, it's really magical. I remember when I first met Jennifer Hale, we were both doing a con together in one year, and we had the same panels and everything, and it was just kind of a magical experience to actually kind of see her face to face and seeing the woman and meeting the woman who actually inspired me to create my journey in voiceover. It's very magical experience getting to meet these voice actors.
Absolutely. It definitely is. It's just absolutely fantastic. And without getting into any spoilers, what's next for Danielle McRae for the fans to know about?
All I can say is there's some games coming out later on this year. There's one in particular that I'm really excited about coming out in late August. And then there's a couple of other shows, like animated shows that I'm working on that should be coming out sometime this year. And I have like an audiobook I'm working on right now with a really popular, scary podcast. I'm not sure if I could just say who they are, but they're really good. They're a really good podcast place. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming. Definitely a lot of stuff coming. And yeah, keep an eye out.
Fantastic. That's just wonderful. And final question, what do you think Karma would say if she was in Australia?
What I think Karma would say if she was in Australia?
That's right.
Oh my goodness. What'd she say? My goodness. She might want to play at the Wallaby. It's like, oh, I love to play at the Wallaby. It took me a second to think, like, what would she want to say or even do? Probably play at the Wallaby. Or make peace with it.
That's just fantastic. That's absolutely wonderful. That's just absolutely wonderful. Danielle McRae, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
It's been amazing talking to you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. And is there anything you would like to say out there to the fans in Australia and in the world?
I want to say thank you for playing the games and for watching the shows, and not even just for me, but for a lot of the voiceover talent and just everyone who works on these projects, like engineers who I feel like don't get enough love, audio engineers and producers and directors and all the creators. Like, thank you for watching and playing these games and watching these shows and movies and stuff. We all really appreciate it.
That's absolutely fantastic right there. Well, guys, if you'd like to find out more about Danielle McRae, you can check out the links which I'll put to in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe down below to HannaTalk. Click that bell to get notifications. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, check out the links below, and don't forget to comment below as well. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Simon and Danielle McRae signing off. Bye for now.